Title: The Vanishing Trail. It was early autumn when Kelsey and her brother, Sam, decided to hike the famous Eagles Ridge Trail in the national park. The trail was known for its rugged beauty, stretching through thick forest, winding up steep cliffs, and offering breathtaking views of the valley below. They'd been planning the trip for months, and despite warnings of recent strange disappearances, they were eager to escape their city lives and reconnect with nature. The sun was still high when they set out, their backpacks filled with water, snacks, and a map. The air was crisp, the scent of pine and earth filling their lungs. They made their way through the dense woods, talking and laughing, losing track of time. The only sounds were their footsteps and the occasional chirp of birds overhead. By mid-afternoon, they reached a secluded spot by a small stream. It was the perfect place to rest and take in the serene surroundings. As Kelsey sat down, she noticed something strange, a sudden stillness in the air, like the forest was holding its breath. The chirping birds had stopped. Even the rustling of the leaves had quieted. "Did you hear that?" Sam asked, his voice tense. He was staring into the trees ahead. Kelsey strained her ears. There was nothing, just the sound of the wind whispering through the branches. "I don't hear anything." They shrugged it off and continued their break. But as they got up to leave, Kelsey noticed something unsettling. The trail behind them had vanished. The path they just walked on, so clear and obvious, was gone, swallowed up by thick underbrush and tangled vines. "This isn't right," Kelsey muttered. "We didn't take any turns. It should be right there." Sam looked around, his eyes darting nervously. "Maybe we walked off the trail a little." They retraced their steps, but every direction they turned seemed to lead them deeper into the woods, further from any recognizable landmarks. The trees were closing in, casting long shadows across the ground, and the air felt thick, oppressive. They decided to call it in, pulling out their phones, but there was no signal. The eerie silence returned, and the realization hit them. They were lost. Hours passed. The sun dipped lower in the sky, and panic began to set in. They argued about which way to go, but every time they tried to follow what they thought was the trail, it twisted and changed, as if the forest itself was playing tricks on them. The woods were impossibly quiet, the kind of silence that felt unnatural, like the world was holding its breath. Then, Sam saw something, a figure standing just at the edge of the trees. A woman, her back to them, her long hair hanging limp and tangled. She was wearing an old-fashioned dress, faded and torn, and her movements were slow, deliberate. "Hey!" Sam shouted, stumbling toward her. "We need help." The figure didn't respond. Instead, it turned, and for a moment, Kelsey thought it was just another lost hiker, someone who had wandered into the woods like they had. But then she saw the woman's face, pale, gaunt, her eyes hollow and black, like two endless voids staring straight through them. Before they could react, the woman vanished into the trees, disappearing without a sound. Kelsey's heart pounded in her chest. "Did you see that?" Sam was breathing hard, his eyes wide with fear. "What was that?" She didn't look real. They stood frozen for a moment, unsure whether to follow or run. Then they heard something else, a low, guttural sound, like something large moving through the underbrush, something that was neither animal nor human. A scraping noise, followed by a soft whisper. "Turn back." Without thinking, they bolted. Their legs burned as they sprinted through the woods, the distant noise of something following them, getting closer with every step. The trees seemed to shift and twist around them, as if the forest itself was trying to keep them inside. The path ahead kept changing, and Kelsey's mind started to break under the strain. Every shadow seemed to have a face. Every rustle in the leaves felt like it was just inches behind them. Finally, they broke through the tree-line. Their feet stumbled onto a wide gravel road. They stopped, panting, looking back at the forest, expecting to see something chasing them, but there was nothing. Just the forest, dark and still, its silence more terrifying than any noise could have been. They didn't speak as they walked down the road, toward the park's entrance. They didn't even look at each other. When they reached the ranger station, they told the story. The ranger, a weathered man with deep lines in his face, listened quietly. When they finished, he didn't seem surprised. Y'all weren't the first to experience that, he said quietly. There's something about that trail. Something wrong. People have been disappearing for years, always in the same area. We tell folks to stay clear of the old paths. Sometimes the forest just takes people. I don't know how or why. It just does. Kelsey felt a chill run down her spine as the ranger's words settled in. And then, before they left, he added one final piece of advice. Whatever you do, don't go back. Once it knows you're there, it doesn't let go. As they left the station, Sam and Kelsey shared a look, one that said everything without needing words. They weren't just lost in the woods that day. They had been marked, and whatever had been in the forest, watching them, would be waiting for them to return.